What a fish.
So, you are wanting to start a bait company. You're wanting to work in the fishing industry because, why wouldn't you? We all have aspirations. We all have dreams, if you want to call them, everybody wants to be somebody. And as anglers, what better, path in life than to work in the outdoor industry, particularly fishing. And in my experience, fishing lures, you might be a small bait maker in your own home, or perhaps you're renting some space to do it, and you want to make baits. You want to start a bait company. And, that's what kind of this video and perhaps maybe a series will even be about, is kind of what it takes and what it's like, just from my perspective. So what is your time worth to you? Time is your best asset. It's your most valuable asset. I think it's really the asset that you need to protect the most. How much time are you willing to put into this? How important is this to you? Because there's an opportunity cost. When you say yes to one thing, that means you got to say no to something else. And what are you saying no to? Are you giving up a normal career? Are you giving up, the job that you got out of college? Are you giving up an internship? Are you, what is it costing you really to do this? That's something that, starting out, I had to ask myself that as well. I'm not going to basically work and earn a paycheck for several years in order to try to pursue a startup business, whether it's baits or anything else. And, there's an opportunity cost. You might be giving up health insurance, life insurance, a steady paycheck. Maybe you went to school for something and you worked really hard in school and you pursued that career path, but maybe fishing is your passion. And now that you've learned how to make a product, whether it's soft plastic lures, other type of lures, whether you're on YouTube, earning money on YouTube through the YouTube Partner Program, which is a great thing to do. There are a lot of ways to enter the space. Obviously, you can be an angler. You can be a competitive angler, fish tournaments. You can provide a product. And then you can be a content creator. Social media has really opened up a lot of avenues to enter whatever space you want. If you're a guitar player, start filming yourself. You can become a professional guitar player in a matter of years if you can create good content. So, time is the most important thing. What are we doing with our time, and what's your time worth to you? And not to get too philosophical, but these are all questions that you have to ask yourself if you're going to work in the fishing business, particularly starting your own company of sorts, because you're giving up something else in order to do what? In order to sell baits. So just a little bit of background about my bait company, Land is the Limit Soft Plastics. I started this in fall of 2012. I believe it was September. So let's just go with September 2012. And, I've talked a little bit about this before in one of my videos. I did sort of like a video about myself, but, I jumped right in. I went in full steam ahead. I was a couple years out of college. I had worked some part-time jobs out of college, and I didn't have a whole lot of direction. I had been dating Julie, who is now my wife, for a while, and my sister and I drew up this logo. You've probably seen it stolen many places, but we drew up this logo right here, and I wanted to put a product to it, and I had always wanted to make soft plastic baits. Don't really know why. They've always been my number one favorite thing to fish. I'd rather throw a plastic bait over a crankbait or any other hard bait, over a spinner bait, wire baits, you name it. So I wanted to start a bait company, and where to start? What do I do necessarily? My YouTube channel, World's Worst Fishing, I've tried to do a good job shedding light on how to actually make this, right? What do you need in order to make your first worm? And the materials, where can I get the materials? How much money am I talking about having to invest in order to make that first worm? So I haven't talked a whole lot about the business side, and I've done that on purpose. When you start talking about business and giving business advice, it opens up the possibility that you're wrong. If I give somebody advice on how to start their lure company and things don't go so well, they may think that I told them wrong. They may think that I misled them. And, nobody is good at criticism. But where do you start? And I jumped right in. I mean, my sister is an amazing graphic designer. We did the name, the logo, we built a website, and my family and I, we made a $500 investment to get that first bucket of plastic, that first injection mold, the first injector, first couple of colors, first couple of glitters. And, I went from there. I spent, the next year just learning colors, slowly adding to the mold collection. And before you know it, you're thousands of dollars in and you've barely sold a thing. And, there were no YouTube channels to show you how to do it, at least not any that I could really learn from or was aware of. The Facebook groups really weren't there. A few people on Tackle Underground, I had a couple conversations with a few guys on there, and that was about it. It was a lot of trial and error. We spent 6 months learning where to get these bags printed. Custom printed poly bags made for worms are one of the biggest challenges, and they're one of the biggest investments. I spent $2,400 via wire transfer to China to get these. And you have to really, really like your design before you pull the trigger on a 20,000 bag order. So one of the most important things to keep in mind is to not get ahead of yourself. I got way ahead of myself. As I was saying, or as I mentioned earlier, I jumped in. I tried to do it all kind of at once. I tried to have all these different baits, several different SKUs, all these different colors. I bought packaging really early. And like I mentioned before, it's a huge investment. And, you got to do it all at once. There is no buying a few hundred bags at a time until you amass several thousand. Nope. You have to, do a wire transfer over to Hong Kong, China, so you have to go to your bank. There's a lot of steps with that, currency exchange. So, if I could do it over, I would pretty much keep it simple, stupid. I would not worry about bags. I would not worry about having the best website yet, although I did have a lot of help with that from family. But the main thing is to make a bait that people are going to want to buy. Everybody can buy plastisol, or excuse me, let me put it this way. Anybody can buy plastisol. Anybody can buy color. Anybody can buy the glitter. Anybody can buy some molds and inject them and produce a bait. There is nothing about this worm right here that you could not do in 10 minutes. With that being said, you want to develop a look. We're all kind of striving for excellence here. Just like playing a sport or playing an instrument, you want to win, essentially. And the way you win is to develop your identity, to develop your look, your colorways. Somebody sees your baits and they're like, yeah, those are his baits. Those are, that's what his work looks like. if you go to the Facebook groups or even on YouTube, I'm not the only person doing it on YouTube. I think I focus a little more on it than other channels, but there are plenty of other people making baits on YouTube. Just I think to a lesser extent, they're not pumping out a lot of content on it, but they can all do it. However, you can kind of start to see, you'll start recognizing somebody's work. And I think that's the ultimate goal, is to develop your own look. Anybody can mix up Junebug. Anybody can mix up watermelon red. But is your watermelon red distinguishable? Can somebody look at it and say, oh yeah, that's made by so-and-so? And I think that's really important, is to develop your identity. And don't worry about pro staff. Don't worry about the best packaging. Don't worry about, how many followers on Facebook you have. I worried about those things a lot. And, I wasted a lot of time. And time is what you don't want to waste. That's your biggest asset. And, despite some of my best effort, during those years, I couldn't do it full time and pay the bills. Whenever you start a business, you're essentially taking a loss for multiple years. That's normally the way it goes, especially a product with small margins. This sells for $5. This is 12 6.5-inch finesse worms in a solid color. Even with some of my YouTube notoriety, and people have seen my brand now for several years. I'm not Gary Yamamoto. I'm not going to get $7.80 for this. I would sell that for $5. Okay, great. I probably have $1 of materials in this: the plastic, the glitter, the colorant, the bag. This bag is 12 cents. But there's then the time, and then the opportunity cost that I gave up to spend that time doing this. What else could I have been doing that day that would have made me more money, that would have enriched my life maybe more than this? And you're dealing with relatively small margins, and so volume is the answer. You've got to sell a ton of $5 bags of baits, and the last thing you want to do is to undercut yourself because you're new or because nobody knows about your brand. When you're new, you don't have a following. You don't have a reputation. You really don't have a big customer base. Why is somebody going to buy your 4-inch crawl when there are a million other 4-inch crawls in this wildly saturated market? And the answer really is branding and identity. Your baits need to look different. You can have the same mold as 1,500 other people. Got to make yours look like yours. And that's something I'm still working on, of course. I'm trying to learn as many new things as possible. And I feel like if you were to set out a wide range of some of my work, I feel like it would look like my work. You really, really want to get to where you're comfortable with your product, to where you can set it next to anybody else's product. And the color may not be as good. Your pouring may not be as clean, but it looks like your product. It's recognizable. And there will be a lot of people that like what you're doing. So another really widely discussed issue, not necessarily an issue, but another topic of importance is all the people that you're going to get, all these emails that you're going to receive, people asking, do you sponsor? You're going to get emails, direct messages, PMs. I love your baits. I would love to rep your bait company, from people that have never used your product. There's like a whole do you sponsor movement. And the answer is no, you do not sponsor. When you are a small bait company, you do not sponsor. There's not enough there to sponsor, in my opinion. What do I really have to offer that angler? I can't give him free product. I can't afford to just give away product, not at the volume that they're going to want. And not to belittle oneself, but when you're a small bait company, even me now with a couple of years under my belt and a little bit of notoriety, I'm still a small bait company. Nobody on the Elite Series is going to come knocking on my door wanting a sponsorship from Land is the Limit. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day. But when you're starting out, okay, let's say you do accept a pro staff. And by the way, pro staff means promotional staff, not professional staff. Most anglers that you're going to come in contact with are not at the professional level. They may fish professionally, as in they fish for money, but that's anybody that fishes a tournament. So anybody at that level is not going to be able to repay you for your product. If I give away, 50 bags of product a month for free to a local angler, well, even if he's well known in the community, he's not bringing me 50 bags worth of sales that month to make up for the loss. That's just not the way it works. At least it was not in my experience. I'm not bad-mouthing anglers that are going out there at a young age trying to get sponsored. I think it's actually really smart to start young. I never wanted to be a tournament angler and travel all year long. So, growing up fishing, I fished for fun. I still fish for fun. I don't fish tournament. I haven't fished a tournament in like 5 or 6 years. And I'm a happier man for it. There's a lot of drama in local clubs. But do you sponsor? I would say unequivocally no. I think there's a lot of guys looking to take advantage of free product. And there's not a lot to gain from a small pro staff position at this level. I've sponsored some people that I really liked and wanted to help out. And just the reality is the two parties really just kind of couldn't do enough for one another to really make it worth I think the trouble of doing it, building a relationship with an angler, sitting out there injecting all this product that you're ultimately going to hand away for free. Well, yeah, they'll introduce your brand to some people, and not to say they won't make a good effort. I just don't think you see a return on it. And if you're starting a bait company, this is a business, and it's all about getting a reasonable return for your effort and your product. If you're not getting a return, you're not, you're not going to last long. With all of that said, one of my best friends, one of my best relationships, fishing, non-fishing, came from a pro staff. So Simple Jack Avery, he was my first, I guess he was my first pro staff guy, right, with Land is the Limit. We've been great friends ever since, and I'm glad I wanted to sponsor people back when I was a young company. I absolutely love fishing with him. He and I are great friends. I'm the best man in his wedding coming up. Starting a bait company opens a lot of doors. People are going to pay a little more attention to you. You're going to word's going to get out in your local community, and you're going to build relationships on that merit alone. And I'm fortunate that I met Avery. He's put a lot of fish in my boat when I haven't been so good. And, I wouldn't trade our relationship for anything, But I would say as a general whole, sponsoring at this level, it's just not, I don't think it's productive for either side. So there's another kind of aspect to putting yourself out there. And when I say put yourself out there, if you start a bait company, or if you do what I did and you get on YouTube, what a world that is. When you start a bait company and you put your name behind something that you have built with your hands, and you say, hey guys, I've created something good. I think you should buy it. I think it's worth your money and worth your time on the water throwing my worm as opposed to that guy's worm. You're going to be criticized a lot. It opens the door to criticism. It also opens the door to praise. So, one thing that I was not prepared for was I think some of the attention that you get, and it's not always positive. I've been called a lot of ugly names over the years over baits. It's actually quite outrageous. That's the world that we live in, though. When you put yourself out there, people are going to judge, and a lot of it comes from jealousy. You're going to find that anyone that has a problem with what you're doing, whether you're building baits, starting a band, playing sports, whatever it is, if somebody is going out of their way to criticize you, that means that you're doing something that they're not, and they're mad. They are jealous. That's been my experience. There are a lot of, not a lot, but, there are several enough, I should say. There are several people in the bait industry, in the home pour industry, that don't like me. They don't like what I'm doing. They don't like the fact that I'm on YouTube making videos. They don't like the fact that I use certain brands, that I promote a certain plastisol, a certain glitter, a certain injector, certain colorants. They don't like my methods, okay? That's fine. I don't expect everyone to like me. Quite frankly, I don't want everyone to like me. I want the right people to like me. I want people that are passionate about baits and passionate about fishing and eager to learn and create. The type of person that's going to call you ugly names, whether publicly or privately, over your YouTube channel or your bait product, is not the kind of person that I really even want around in the first place. So back to actually trying to make money making soft plastics, either using hand pouring or hand injection. Few people have pulled it off full time, as in their main source of income. Baits is all they do. I could probably get the sales now to do it. At first, I didn't have the sales. I had some regional distributorships. I was in some stores. I was doing, hundreds of bags a month. And that may sound like a lot, but it's really not, So after a couple of years, I had to tone it down to a side business and enter the workforce. And for me personally, that was a great decision. Just the opportunity cost was no longer working in my favor. I needed to work. I needed a steady paycheck. And, there are some guys that are doing it. One of my favorite bait makers, Raw Baits, Richard Ray, absolutely phenomenal bait maker. He makes us all just weep. His colors are so good. I've spoken to Richard a few times. If you see this video and I say something wrong, please leave a comment and correct me. But he's doing baits full time. That's his job. My understanding was he had a career doing something else and stopped to make baits. And he does it all day, every day. Maybe not every day, but he's putting in the labor. He's putting in those long days. Somebody I've gotten to know over the last year, Josh at Angling AI. He works like you cannot imagine. And he gets a lot of sales, and he's doing phenomenally well. But the labor, with sales comes the more stuff you have to make. Let's say that your average bag of plastic sells for $5. Okay, well, I've got to make 10,000 bags to generate $50,000 in sales for that year, right? Well, that sounds like a lot, but factor in low margins. Let's say you want to pay yourself only $25,000, a year. Well, you at least need to be generating $50,000 of sales. That's 10,000 bags at, let's say eight baits per bag, at 10,000 bags. That's 80,000 individual lures that you have to shoot, demold, lay out to cure, hang up to cure, and put in a bag. And, that's a lot of work. Some guys can do it. They love it. Angler's Choice, I believe he's in Canada. He does it full time. He's been able to make it work. I think I think his family also owns and runs a retail space for bait and tackle as well. So I'm sure that helps supplement the bait business. I can't speak intelligently as to how any of these guys are doing financially as far as, what their profits are, what they're able to pay themselves. But, I know in the case of Angler's Choice, he's been doing it a long time. He's probably got the best system for making production out of smaller techniques. And what I mean by that is not running a full-size injection machine with 100 cavity production molds, still making them with the same molds that you and I buy, using some of the same equipment that you and I buy. So some people can do it. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody from doing it. I'm just trying to speak a little bit to my experience and why I don't do baits full time. Is it fun? It's the most fun you can have aside from actually catching a fish is pulling a great bait out of a mold. The people that you meet, the relationships you build, it's very rewarding. Getting on YouTube was one of the best things I ever did. It's a lot of work. I mean, I work a full-time career. I get up in the morning at 7 a.m. I go work all day. I come home, and then I go to work again, and then I have a small child. So, aside from just physical bait orders that I have to make, I'm thinking about video ideas. I'm filming. I'm editing. I'm trying to respond to emails, respond to comments. There's a lot that goes into the YouTube channel that has nothing to do with actually invoicing people for baits, making the baits, and then sending them out in the mail. So, I guess the whole point to this part of the video is, just make sure that you can financially absorb, taking a loss if you're going to go full time. Now, if you want a side business that is the most rewarding side business I think that there's nothing better than making a bait and catching a fish on your own bait. And then, even better than that, is making a bait, selling it to somebody or selling it to a friend, and then seeing them catch a nice fish on it. Or slaughtering the fish on them, catching 30 bass in a day, whatever it may be. There's hardly a better feeling than knowing that you helped somebody else succeed on the water catching fish. It's been the best decision of my life to do Land's the Limit and to do World's Worst Fishing. And the YouTube channel has actually done a lot to boost my bait business. I get multiple bait orders a day. I can't accept them all. I just don't have the time to physically make the bait, put it in the bag, and ship it out. So, unfortunately, I have to turn down a lot of orders. But maybe you won't. If you're in a better position to do it full time, I say go for it. Social media allows you to put your product out to the same people that Strike King can. So, you want to start a bait company? I say do it.